everybody, Kung Fu Cowboy here. And this episode is I'm going to kind of make them about my singles, but I want to do so many episodes that hopefully I'll run out of singles. This episode is about my second single of Kung Fu Cowboy. Now, Kung Fu Cowboy, even though I've been actually on television since 1964, performing, in a school or band and orchestra, and started doing electric guitar in 1966. So by 67, I was performing little gigs and birthday parties and events, like Sadie Hawkins Day, there'd be a dance, and I'd play. But anyway, I'm original hippie from the 60s. That's a whole story. Look forward to sharing a lot of that. Hopefully inspiring you to control and temper and use moderation in your spiritual and chemical explorations, which of course I think I'm a great role model for. I mean, half my friends are dead. Well, more than half my friends are dead now. But I lost a lot of my friends through drug overdoses and things. So I can tell stories about that. But I don't know if they're really inspiring. Just follow my good advice. And rather than me giving you a whole bunch of bad advice and saying, oh, this guy did this and killed himself, I'd rather tell you, hey, do this and this and this, and then you'll be okay. So that's kind of what I'm going to try to lean towards, the positive role model advice. And anyway, I found this sheet when I was looking through my podcast, because I've got all kinds of notebooks. I'm an overly organized person. I have a book called 5 Souls of God. You've got to go get that book. I mean, the first one is me discovering this, in which I discovered there's 5 souls in everybody. But let's not talk about that right now. I don't want to confuse you too much, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely modernize psychology. When psychology gets a hold of my 5 soul theory, it's going to change everything. It's going to change the way you find a marriage partner, the way you find an employee, the way you find a business partner, the way you can understand all your family members. Now they all are going to make sense, because it turns out that psychology is not really genetic. It has a lot to do with the spirit. And like they say, a musician is born. Anybody can learn to play an instrument, but a musician is born. And they say even a salesman is born. And I can prove that now with my 5 soul theory. But here we go. I found this little thing that says, who is the Kung Fu Cowboy? So I thought, well, maybe this would be a good time to do that. But let me mention my single first. The single is Rock Me Baby. And that was written, once again, this is another song from American Zen, and I had trombones on it and kind of remixed it and released it as a single. And Rock Me Baby was written when I was, well, of course, my homeless period back in 2014 from, 2012 to 2019, all those years I was homeless. Yeah. But I don't want to even share. I don't want to think about that right now. So anyway, here we go. What does it say about me? I'm going to introduce us both to me. When did I write here? Well, at the top it says, I'm a super talented songwriter, musician, poet. I've been watching all kinds of podcasts and taking seminars and webinars and trying to learn how to do marketing. Marketing is my weakest link. I mean, I like to communicate, and I say, hey, I got this, and I think you'll like it, and here's why I think you'll like it. So that's the extent of my marketing. I'm capable of doing that, and I enjoy doing that and sharing what I've got, because what I make is both for me and for the world. I'd like to think if I make it so it helps me be happy and healthy, then it'll make you be happy and healthy, or at least someone similar to me. Okay, so anyway, who is the Kung Fu Cowboy? Well, number 1, what am I? I am a Shaolin Kung Fu master certified by Wong Jack Man. Okay, who's Wong Jack Man? You should know that. Wong Jack Man is the guy they made a lot of those movies about, who fought Bruce Lee in 1964, and they actually had a real fight. And I'm just going to summarize it real quick. One of my school brothers at the Wong Jack Man School, which I've been certified and graduated from, his name's Rick Bucky Wing. Well, maybe he doesn't use the Bucky anymore, but Rick Wing. We call him Bucky. Sorry. Bucky, I love you. I really do. He's a great guy. I mean, he's always, him and I just we're brothers. I'm as close, I'm like my own. Well, closer to my own brothers. He's a really, I really like Bucky. What a wonderful person. But anyway, he took over the Wong Jack Man School, inherited. Wong Jack Man has since passed away. But Shaolin Kung Fu is about being healthy and smarter and happy. And he lived, I don't know how many years past Bruce Lee, 10, 20, 30, 40. So his Kung Fu enabled his life to go 40 years longer than Bruce Lee, at least, maybe 50, I'd imagine. But anyway, he fought Bruce Lee, and he was my Kung Fu master. He's the one who certified me as a Jing Mo school, which is the original Chinese. If you watch some of the original Jet Li and even the Bruce Lee films, one of the movies is where he goes back to his school and he's honoring the master who's already been killed. Well, that's based on a true story of my master, the original founder of the school, who was after the monks. The monks gave it to somebody, and then this guy gave it to somebody, and then somebody gave it to me, or Wong Jack Man gave it to me. So we got a certain lineage of the Shaolin Kung Fu. You can't get it at the Shaolin Temple anymore. It takes 4 to 6 months to learn one dance. It takes 4 to 6 months to learn any one of these weapons. You can't do it in a weekend. You can't even do it in a week. You can't even do it in 2 weeks. Nobody. I've been teaching since 1984. What are we talking? 40 years I've been teaching. In 40 years, I haven't found anybody who can learn one of these weapons in less than 4 months. 6 months preferably, and then you need another 6 months to carry it around with you to really master it. So really it takes a year per weapon, and I got 18 weapons. So some of you might not want to spend so much time with. But certain ones like my monk spade, man, I've spent many years. I just take that to class for half a dozen years, every time. In fact, I had a bicycle, and I used to bungee it to my bicycle so I looked like I was one of those javelin guys in the old days, like I was what do they call that? Anyway, when the knights would charge each other with a big, huge spear. What a dumb idea, huh? But anyway, I would have it bungeed, and I'd take it. Sometimes I'd have regular staffs, without points. But I had spears. But my monk spade was the best because it's the most challenging. It's heavy. It's really heavy. So when the other students, I was teaching them the staff exercises, and we're doing drills, and they're using just a stick. I got this thing, which adds another 10 pounds, and that just makes it a lot more, and builds up your chest and everything. Makes you sit upright. In fact, I'm kind of a little too relaxed right now, but there's a reason for that. I've been going through quite a bit. But anyway, I had cancer a few years ago, went through chemotherapy. I just had a left hip replacement, and this year I'm going to get the right hip replacement, and then boom, I'm going for the rest of my life. I've got to see how much I can accomplish, but at least I won't be limited because my hips have totally worn out. But unlike my brothers who wore them out, who are younger than me and wore them out 20 years ago because of misuse, they said, they used them wrongly, whatever they did. I didn't want to get the details. But they even they said, I used it really wrong. That was my mistakes. And they did stuff that evidently they think they're responsible. Me, I'm responsible for doing Kung Fu, and my hips lasted 20 years longer. So my Kung Fu is less stressful than my brothers doing surfing and landscaping and stuff. But anyway, so I'm a certified by Wong Jack Man. I'm a real Shaolin master in the lineage of all the monks for over 1,500 years, 1,500 years. I'm carrying on that tradition. I am actually, and I teach the Buddhism of the Buddhist monastery, which they don't now. Now remember, the Shaolin Temple is a Chinese theme park owned and operated by the Chinese government. And the Chinese government is against all religions. So even the small pretext of Buddhism at the temple is a facade. And I know the monk. I know half a dozen of the monks, 3 of them real personally, and maybe 4. But anyway, they're not Buddhists. There's one who really pushes it, but he's mean and he's brutal and he punishes his students. So I don't think I can call him a Buddhist. Even though he thinks he's really pushing the Buddhism, he's very mean. And I don't think that you're supposed to be mean when you're a Buddhist. And I don't think that you're supposed to yell and intimidate and humiliate your students. So that's why I say I don't know I don't know any of the people who come from the Shaolin Temple in the last 100 years, or at least the last 50 years, that is really a Buddhist. So, and they don't teach the real Shaolin Kung Fu either. All that stuff about tying up their gonads and doing all these things and putting spears on their neck, that's not Kung Fu. That's carnival stuff. But anyway. So anyway, I can't be too supportive of the Shaolin Temple. Sorry. I'm supportive of Shaolin Kung Fu, the old traditional stuff as I teach it. And there's very few people who teach it trying to be traditional. Most people try to add karate and stuff like that and sparring. No. There's no rules in Shaolin Kung Fu. So I say there's no sparring. We do push hands training and Chin Na and Ji Sao and things like that for techniques, but no sparring. Because if we spar, you should only fight someone if it's life and death. My students aren't allowed to go spar in tournaments or do anything. They have to sign a waiver. No sparring, no fighting at all. Because as far as I know, in my 40 years of teaching, not one student of mine has ever lost a fight. all the kids, the women, they've called me on the phone. Hey, I beat this guy up who's trying to rape me. A guy goes to jail. Hey, man, this guy attacked me in jail and I beat him. And they call me up and tell me the techniques that they used. It's kind of interesting. But as far as I know, not one single student of mine has ever lost a fight. But you're not supposed to just fight for random reasons. You only fight when your life is in danger. And if you fight when your life is in danger or someone else's, you better win. Okay? My reputation's on the line. I've made my anyway. But anyway, the point being is it really works. Shaolin Kung Fu is the ultimate self-defense. There's just no way around it. Every dirty trick in the book, we teach it. We'll get to that another time. Anyway, let's get back to my list. I'm only on number 1. Number 2, I was born Richard Del Conner. And he is an LSD hippie pioneer of those 1960s. I wrote this thing a few years ago, anyway, but it's true. and the LSD that we got was the LSD 25, lysergic dimethylamide 25, whatever it is. It's a specific kind, specific ingredients with a specific result. And I took everything. I had the Owsley a whole bunch of times, and I had the orange, which I found a book, and I got to read the story of the guys who were making the orange acid down by where the Rickenbacker factory is. And that whole thing of them pumping out 1 million tabs of that. And I had a whole bunch of that orange stuff. And then all kinds of other stuff. And then I finally hooked up with a guy who was actually making it in San Diego at USC. I was in San Diego, and USC is in San Diego. And the one that I was going to, the one that's, anyway, the UCSD, maybe, what is it? Whatever, I didn't go there. But whatever that college is, it's near the ocean. And whatever that college is, we used to go there. And in fact, I wasn't even 16 yet, so I had to have somebody drive me. And that was kind of cool. And I got to meet the guy who was making it, and I talked to him about it. So I can tell you stories about how it was made, why it was made, and why they use certain ingredients, what I totally disagree with. But I can at least explain it from the acid manufacturing perspective. Okay, but you can't get that stuff anymore. All this other stuff you get and all these designer drugs and stuff that they call LSD is similar. In fact, it might even be worse. It might even be more, I don't know. As far as I was concerned, LSD was the roller coaster of the mind. And that's it, It doesn't give you any enlightenment. You don't get any information on LSD. Zippo. You're just as smart as when you start. Nothing enters your brain. All it does is distort reality. So the only benefit of my doing LSD, and a lot of it for, when we talking 1966, 67, 68, 69, and then I got kicked out of the United States in 70, so I was only here for like 4 or 5 months of 1970 before I was exiled to Canada. So yeah, I did a whole bunch of, plus I was selling it. I got stories about that. That's funny. But anyway, I do. I got lots of stories about that. Okay, here's part of that. I was number 3. I was exiled for LSD in 1970 to Newfoundland, where I wrote this in the third person. I guess I was trying to write myself a biography, where he became a songwriter hitchhiking across Canada. Yeah, I used to do that. I did it for several reasons. Sometimes when people would move, they would need to, take their cars, and they would have more than one car, or they'd want to fly and they'd have a truck, but they'd still want their car, and they didn't want to make that drive from Newfoundland all the way to Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver. And so when people would move, sometimes I would use that as a job. So I would drive their car, and then they would give me enough money, to I don't know if they knew I was hitchhiking, but they must have known. I would hitchhike back and make $50, $100 or something. I should have charged a lot more, but anyway. When you're an exile in another country and you can't have a job and you're locked in anyway. So anyway, I that was one of the jobs I had. The other thing I did was I made leather stuff and used to carve marijuana leaves in and stuff. But anyway, we're talking about 1970 now. But anyway, I was exiled for that's right. I was actually exiled. I'm the only person I've ever met who's been exiled from the United States. Kicked out. Boom. I'm an American citizen. I am an American citizen. So that's a whole story in itself, and how I went to Canada. And then, of course, I became a immigrant. I was an immigrant to them and an immigrant from here. I was just kind of just surviving. So the terminology didn't matter. In fact, my goals, I didn't have any goals, to be honest with you. I didn't even know I was going to be a professional musician. I didn't know I was going to learn Kung Fu. We're talking about I was 16 years old, and I got kicked out of my reality and thrown into another reality. And I was on a farm. I was on a ranch, actually, a 60-acre ranch, and I had 600 wildfowl. And I had to feed them twice a day and other stuff. But that's a whole story in itself. I'd like to share some of those with you. Number 4, I'm a recording engineer of the 1970s who became a record production, record company in the 1980s and performed rock operas like Coyote in a Graveyard. That's a lot of stuff. How long? Well, I've already been here 15 minutes and I'm only on number 3 and I got what do I got? 16 things to go here. Let's break this up. I guess maybe I should say goodbye or maybe do I cut this thing? It's been 15 minutes. I'll leave it at this for right now. I'll come back and we'll go to I'll see you in the next episode. Yay! Kung Fu Cowboy here.